Hello, Mr. Aditya. Uh,
Hello.
so we are here to conduct your interview on distribution channels in your company to understand how that distribution system works in your company. So first, I want you to introduce yourself.
So basically, my name is Aditya Vikram Jalan, and I'm the Assistant General Manager at Sati Paper Traders. It's a family-owned business that's been established in 1968, and our primary business is trading and dealing with paperboards and specialty papers.
All right. So my first question for you is, since you said you are dealing with the specialty paper and packaging paper, and you are related to ITC company, so can you tell me the distribution strategy for ITC and their goals behind it?
So basically, ITC has a very customer-centric distribution strategy, and the major focus has always been about maximizing the market reach and the customer satisfaction. So, since you will not be aware, basically in the paperboard industry, there are very few limited um, big players, right? And ITC is the leader in the bigger segment. So maximizing their market reach is very important to cater to the varieties that actually the customers are in need of, because the local players are not sufficient enough to actually deal with it. So that is one of the main strategies to enhance their distribution in such a way that they can maximize their market penetration.
All right.
Okay, so the next question would be how the ITC distribute their products worldwide or across the India, how they distribute their product from their factories and the warehouse. What is the whole channel system?
Okay. So basically, ITC has just four manufacturing plants, right? So one is Bhadrachalam, that is in Telangana, which is their integrated pulp and paper mill, right? Then for the paper, which and the paper boards, they have two different mills. One is in Kovai and one is in Bolaram, which is in Tamil Nadu and Telangana, right? So what they do is for this paper boards, whatever is produced in all the three factories is collated at Bhadrachalam itself, which is the primary warehouse itself, and from there it is distributed all across the country. Whereas coming to specialty papers, they have just one factory in Tribeni, which is in West Bengal, right? And all the distribution for specialty papers takes place from Tribeni itself. So therefore, they don't when it comes from the company itself, they distribute it either from Tribeni or from Bhadrachalam, right? And therefore, they use their distribution network to transfer all their products to the various distributors across the country.
All right. So next, since ITC has been there for so long, so it's an established player. So have you seen any changes in the distribution system that they have made along the way?
So we've been working for ITC for approximately 20 years.
All right.
And in these past 20 years, basically, what they've done is they've moved into a channel diversification. So what earlier used to happen was if I wanted a set of products, I would get it from Bhadrachalam itself. But now what they've done is they've divided the country into different areas where they have QSCs, which are quick service centers, which are owned by the company itself. Right. So now what they do is all the products are transferred either to the distributors or the QSCs, whichever is more convenient. For us, it's convenient to get it to our location because we've had a very long history with them. But if there are any distributors which have very small history, which have started keeping or which started selling ITC in the past 4 5 years, then they're usually catered through the QSCs rather than getting the products themselves. Other than that, what they've done is they've introduced digital tools a lot. So what earlier used to happen was whenever we needed a proper itemized bill, then we'd have to contact them by phone. Then a person they would write out everything and they would mail it to us, right? The using the India Post.
Mm.
But now everything is so digitalized that at the drop of a hat, I can get all the itemized bills and all the strategies, all the whatever they have in store for us. For example, they have different runs where they uh, where they manufacture different products, right? So at the drop of a hat, we can get the entire schedule, as in what kind of product is being produced at which factory, and what will be the basic lead time or the run time that will take them to get the product to us. So it's very digitalized. So that is one thing that's happened over the years. And they've also moved into sustainability a lot. So a lot of the product ranges have two variants: one which is sustainable and one which has some use of plastic in it. So therefore, one which has a little bit of use of plastic, that is used for basically smaller companies which don't have sufficient green requirements. But for companies which have green requirements, for example, we cater to Sudha Dairy, and they have very strict requirements, and therefore we use the sustainable option that they have rather than the plastic one. So therefore, they've also moved into diversification of product line.
All right.
Okay, so as you are working with the company ITC for so long, so can you please share us the profit margin which the big players have, like the distributor, the manufacturer, the retailer? So what's the profit margin which the players play on?
Okay, so coming to ITC, I don't have the exact figures, obviously, but it will be somewhere in the range of 20 to 22% as per their annual statements, which we get a copy of, which we study itself. Right? So 20 to 22% is what the PSPD department actually runs on. Whereas coming to us, I won't give you the exact figures for obvious reasons. But as an industry-wide, I'll just give you an assumptive figure that distributors run on anywhere from 5 to 15% gross margins, right? And coming to retailers, I'm not very sure, but retailers run on a 5 to 8% gross margin, depending on where you're catering from, what are your overheads and what are your SNG charges. So that will differ. But consider these the approximate figures on an industry-wide basis.
Okay.
So next is, can you explain me how does the distribution system work in cities? You can give example of your own city where you are currently operating from.
Okay. So you want me to start from ITC, right?
Yeah.
So basically what happens is once I place an order with ITC, I get the products to my warehouse, right? And then the products, it takes approximately 30 days. I have a 30 days lead time, right? From order placing to getting the product into my warehouse, it takes approximately 30 days because, as I said, they have different runs of different product lines, right? They have the integrated plant. So maybe what product I'm desiring, as of now, they're not producing for the next 3 months, right? So that is one kind of a delay. That's why I need the entire chart, as I told you, that I get the entire schedule, as in what products will be produced in which month, in which week of that month. So that way the orders are placed, and it takes approximately 30 days to get the product from order placing to manufacturing to delivery. In case the products are already in stock with them, they're not producing it fresh, they already have it in stock, then it takes approximately 7 to 10 days. Because getting anything from Hyderabad and Telangana, it's a little complicated because the large needs to cover. And once it reaches to me, then my warehouse is from where I cater to all the customers. If they're retail customers, I cater to them from my shop directly. But for large orders and for all the wholesalers who, for the large consignment orders, for the printers and all the other customers that I have, then they get all the deliveries from the warehouse itself.
Right.
Okay. So can you tell me what's the company's expectations from you? So what they want from you?
See, I think it does not matter a lot in terms of which industry you're in, because every distributor has the same targets, as in the same the company has the same expectations of distributors, which will be meeting the sales targets because they need to have an optimized sales line, right? They need to know what the revenues are going to be year on year. So meeting the sales target is absolutely essential. Other than that, what they also want are two things, which will one be quality service, right? Because if the customers are not satisfied with my service, it impacts their service itself, right? If any customer has a complaint because of how I store my products, right, it will directly impact the quality that is being provided to them from ITC. So ITC comes under fire for bad products. If my storage capacity is not optimal, right? So that will be a problem. So quality service is one requirement, and that's something that they look after a lot. And obviously, one other thing will be the market intelligence, as in what the market wants, what the market trends, what are the customer requirements. They'll need market data because I'm in touch with the customers, right? They are in touch with me, but I'm in touch with the actual final consumers of the product. So whatever data I give to them, that is on the basis of which they will have their production lines optimized or production lines scheduled, right? So I think market data is also one essential part essential item that they want from the customers. Sorry, the distributor itself.
All right. So how does ITC choose their distributor? Like, what is the qualification criteria for them?
Okay. So when ITC chose us, right, there, I think over the years, the criteria must have changed a lot because it's been 20 years. But I think the same fundamentals will still apply, that the business should have a good reputation in the industry. Since we've been in business since 1968, when it was actually founded. Sati Paper was founded in 68. So since we have a long history of dealing in this industry, we have a reputation to protect. And if a company like ITC wants to cater to a new market, obviously the distributor's reputation is at stake. So they want the distributor to be highly reputed, right? So that is one. Other thing should be the market reach that we have. My business individually caters to Bihar and Jharkhand itself. So I cater to more than 2,000 businesses, small and big, right? So, and no other company, no other business in this industry in Bihar, Jharkhand has such a vast product customer line, right? So that is one thing that they need. Because if you don't have a lot of customers, then obviously their product will not be sold a lot, right? One thing should also be financial stability. If you're not able to pay back their dues in time, if you don't meet the credit requirements, if you don't meet the inventory requirements, if you don't have the proper infrastructure in line, if you don't have the proper warehouse in line, then that is also something that matters a lot. Because if you can't store the products, if you can't pay for the products, then that will be a problem for them itself. So I think these are the basic requirements that we had, because we had a team coming from Bhadrachalam itself who did a proper, let's say, quality check about our infrastructure, about our financial statements, about the market reach that we have, about the market share that we hold. And only post that were we given the contract to work as distributor for ITC.
Okay. So as you are the distributor for the ITC, so how does ITC motivates you, or if they give you any support or something?
So the motivation comes from the incentives, as in on meeting a particular sales target, we get performance-based incentives in the terms of heavy discounts, or we get rebates, or we get quantities of products which are new in line, which are not very popular which has just been introduced at subsidized rates. For example, I'll give you a very basic example. So there's a product that they use which is called Indobar, which is a food packaging board, right? But they wanted to shift to a more green or sustainable option, which did not have plastic in it, because that was the requirement of the European companies and also to the bigger companies that deal in FMCG. So what happened was, because we had met a sales target with regard to Indobar, we got an entire truck of filler pack at 50% discount, which means that when we could have actually received a 12% or 10% net profit on product, we were able to make that a 50% net product on that specific line. So that was a huge incentive for us. And post that, whenever they introduce a new product, we always get it at subsidized rates, which help push our profit margins to a huge extent.
All right. So speaking about performance, so how does ITC review your performance?
I think the review is mostly done with the sales figures, right? If you meet the sales targets, then that's the major review. Another sort of review will also be on the credit line, as in whether we are paying them in time or not, right? If a company is delayed in making the payments, if a company does not pay repeatedly on time, then that's a problem. So that will be something that will be a red flag moving on, right? So that's one. I think another will also be whether we're maintaining or increasing our market share. Because if we don't do well on a personal level, then it impacts what ITC does in the back end, right? So I'll just think these are three major factors. That's sales target. The other is credit limits, credit requirements, whether we are making the payments on time. And the other is market share, whether we are growing the market share, we are constant. It should not be decreasing unless there's a new player in town, unless there's a new product in town which takes the lead figure, right? Unless that impacts the penetration. Other than that, it should be good to go.
Okay. So as you are working with ITC for past 20 years, did you have any conflict with the company? And if you did, how did you resolve it?
Okay, so coming to conflicts, well, we haven't had a lot of conflicts other than a few territorial disputes. Um, so I won't go into the details, obviously, but just understand that when we were catering to Bihar and Jharkhand, right? They approximately in 2014 or 2016, somewhat, they wanted to introduce a new distributor who would cater only to the Jharkhand area, right? They wanted to do it because that would help them optimize their distribution network, right? But we had a conflict with them because that would impact our margins. If you're dealing with 300, 400 customers from an entire state, which gets transferred to another player, so that's a problem because we've been catering to that customer, we've been creating that customer where we've put our hard-earned money and our time to develop that customer. And you just can't pick up and transfer a customer from one player to the other. So that was a conflict which it took time to resolve. But yeah, that was one of the major disputes. The other disputes was during the COVID period, right? So we understand that COVID was a hard time for many businesses. And we had a tough time in dealing with the cash flows because there was a reduced cash flow during that time because the customers were not willing to pay. Despite that, we made payments to the company, although not the full amounts, because the full amounts, obviously, we weren't able to shell out that cash that because that would block our working capital, impacting our business. And because of that, we were charged interest on late payments. So that was what was another dispute which took some time to resolve. But even they understood the fact that if a company is ready to pay 80% of their dues in a time such as COVID, when people are not paying even 10%, so that shows the goodwill that we had. We had sufficient cash balance with us, so we were able to, let's say, meet their 80% of the requirements. But had it been a little more than that, or had we been short in cash, that would have been difficult. And maybe we would have lost their business, but they would also have lost two states at the same time. Because if we can't, because I'm very confident when I say this, if we can't cater to ITC on the cash balances, no other business in Bihar and Jharkhand can.
All right.
Right? I'm very confident of that. I can say it very bluntly. If they would have taken the business from us, then they would not find any player that would be able to meet the requirements.
Okay.
So they understood that in time, and that's why we still are doing business with them.
All right. Last question. So, do you have any expectations from ITC? Are there any unmet needs that have not been fulfilled yet?
The unmet needs will always be pricing, right? Whenever you're dealing with such a huge customer base, you always want a little here and there where you can manage a little profit for yourself, right? When the markets are down, you expect the company to understand that the markets are down. So there should be some incentive in the form of, reduced prices that might help push the customers on the distributor's profit margin. The other companies do understand that because maybe they fear that their market share will be lost. So they do reduce the prices in time. But ITC does not. Yes, they have that. Yes, they are the biggest players. They have a lot of cash. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of power. But they need to understand the market scenarios at all times. When the market is bad, when you understand that people are not willing to pay a specified price for a product, despite repeated complaints from distributors, then you have to reduce the prices, which they do not. And because of that, when the markets are down, their market share always takes a hit. It's been repeatedly seen over the past 20 years that we've been working with them. Whenever the market has been a little bad, be it COVID, be it because of the lack of raw materials, be it just market scenario as it is, right? They refuse to reduce the prices. And that's why those 6 months or 8 months or year, whatever that period might be, they always take a hit in their market share. Always. And still they're not ready to understand that. So I think that is one thing that I want them to consider. The other is consistent supply. We understand we're not the biggest players for ITC, right? But because of the fact that we deal in two states, we would want the supply to be more consistent in terms of their response, which is a little lackluster at this point of time, but maybe it'll improve as it's been improving over the past few years. Maybe we'll see some changes over time. But as of now, these are the two major problems. The other can be the flexible credit terms, but I think that's something that's manageable at this point of time. Maybe not for others, but for us, it's flexible enough. Let's just say if there's an improvement, we'd like that. But even if there's no changes, we are okay with it at this particular juncture in time. I think that's all.
All right. Thank you so much for the interview. Thank you so much for answering all our questions.
You're welcome.